I just bought a ton of carbon removal. Actually, I specifically bought a first ton of carbon removal from a startup called Seaweed Generation. They're one of the Launchpad teams. We had our kickoff, and all the teams talk about where they're headed, what their goal is, how they're going to get there. And Patty said, we're trying to sell our first ton of carbon removed. I said, all right, well, let's take it. So I want to talk about why that's important and what's so cool about that. It's just a ton of carbon, right? But the thing is, I think the more we can tell people, you can get paid to pull carbon from the air. You can get paid to work on how do we take invisible gas out of the atmosphere and do something with it, store it or put it into products, stuff like that. And you can do this. You can yourself be a part of carbon removal on the supplier side. But by buying this first ton, I'm also participating as a buyer, right? So like you watching this, you could go out and buy the first ton of carbon from a startup. Like participating in carbon removal isn't just for people that are actually building the systems, building the technologies, building the businesses that do this. You can participate by buying carbon from them. And it wasn't super sexy. Like I Venmo'd them the money. They're getting their facility set up. They're kind of getting their process set up. They're going to be basically it's a Roomba that goes around and grabs up a certain type of seaweed from the ocean and figures out how to then sink it into the ocean. So very early stage startup company. I wanted to support what they're doing. So why it's important? One, it shows people you too can work on removing carbon. Two, shows you too can work on supporting companies and entrepreneurs that pull carbon from the air. And then thirdly, this I think this proves out this kind of community support model where it's like we see all these discussions happening on Slack. We see people doing having questions, having answers, helping each other. But what else can we do kind of beyond going to events and talking to each other, asking questions? Like, what are other ways that we all can support people working on removing carbon from the air? Buying carbon is one way to do that. But I'm curious to see what other ways can we come up with to support gigaton scale carbon dioxide removal. Air Miners is working on this goal of a cumulative gigaton of carbon removed by 2030. So it means we're going to be counting every single ton removed and counting that towards this gigaton goal. How else can we help unlock people to buy tons of carbon? Maybe other people want to buy a first ton of carbon. Maybe it's just this weird thing that happened, in Launchpad, but maybe it's something that other people are interested in, or maybe there's something else, some other way people want to get involved, whether it's being a mentor, an advisor. But again, kind of breaking out some of these molds or breaking out of some of these common things like helping people through Slack, answering questions, mentoring, advising. What's next? What are other things that other ways that a community of people can support early stage companies that are working on removing carbon from the air? I'm curious to hear what you think about that. I'm curious to hear if you have other ways that you've supported others in the community. I would love to hear about it and figure out how we can magnify it. And just last thing is I ended up buying another ton of carbon from Tau Carbon just this afternoon. After buying the ton from Patty at Seaweed Generation, all the other Launchpad companies were like, "Hey, maybe we can sell you carbon." So just talked with Tau and bought their first ton. That's from their prototype facility that they have just set up. So now I have 2 first tons of carbon, and it didn't cost a lot of money. I'm not like a corporation buying this. These aren't Air Miners tons. These are just Tito tons. So it is. I wanted to do the experiment in terms of an individual person buying some tons. It's totally something that an individual person can do, and I think that's what's so powerful about the Air Miners community is this idea of individual actions adding up to gigaton scale carbon removal. So I'll keep you posted on these first ton carbon sales. Looks like there's a thread on Air Miners Slack about it. If you're interested, you can chat more about that there. And yeah, curious for any ways that you've contributed or ways you'd like to contribute to this goal of gigaton scale carbon removal.